NRATV special live presentation from CPAC.
Well, welcome back as we continue our live coverage from here at the Gaylord National Hotel outside of Washington, D.C. at the CPAC Convention, Conservative Political Action Conference, a great meeting of conservatives. Taking the stand right now, the podium, is Robert Davi. You probably know him from Goonies and Die Hard, and it is, I didn't know that he was a conservative, but why don't we listen in to Robert Davi and see what he has to say as we lead up to Mike Pence's speech.
Moved I am to see how many young people are engaged. You are the future of this country. And you've got to be engaged, and you have to understand how important this moment of your history is, because this nation belongs to you. I want to ask a question, and I want you to be honest. How many of you, on the day Donald Trump came down that escalator, were you Trump supporters? Just raise your hands. How many? And how many are supporters today? I write for Breitbart. I've done that since this inception. Andrew Breitbart was a good friend of mine. I met him on the USS Ronald Reagan. I also have a radio talk show now. Go figure. Bond villain goes talk show host. You get danger and politics at the same time, you know? I call my show part of it Cioppino. Now, for those of you that don't know what Cioppino is an Italian fish stew. And politics can be very fishy sometimes. And I let you know before my show if it's edible or not this particular week. But I want to read something for you guys that I wrote on June 16th, 2015 for Breitbart, the day Donald Trump made his entrance with Melania down the escalator. Donald Trump could be the presidential candidate who finally provides America with the message most grassroots conservatives have been waiting to hear. The common sense populist message of the Donald, while not as poetic as that of Ronald Reagan, does go right to the gut of an American population that has been ripping its hair out while watching the destruction of our republic from within. The compliance and lack of imagination from some in the Republican Party, the elite, along with the aggressive takeover by progressives who are bent on reshaping America into the image of Europe, have brought us to the point we are now in. I have not in my lifetime seen such a disparaging portrait of America as we see today, and it will take a leader who understands how to build, not just govern. We have had years of the tired blood of political elites who have dismantled America's individualism. We do not need another politician at this particular time in our history. That was my opening statement on the Breitbart article I wrote the day our president announced. You see, and these are all great political figures and people, and I respect them all. But I remember watching, and we all love all of them. But there are a couple of benchmarks for me. The media is one of them. The culture is another one. We'll get to the media in a second. And I've talked about that for years, and we all know it. And being in Hollywood since 1977, I did my first film with Frank Sinatra, 1977. So I've seen Hollywood. I've seen Reagan, Ronald Reagan, 1980. And I'm going to bring to mind something that I talked with a friend of mine a couple of times. We discussed this, Mark Masters actually. And when Ronald Reagan was president of the United States, Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. Wall came down. Peace through strength. Nuclear détente. Prosperity. In 1988, his right hand was a guy named George Bush. We respect the Bushes, we respect George Bush. But there was a shift. There was a shift that is absolutely stunning. After being the right hand of Ronald Reagan for 8 years and seeing the bold choices and the bold moves that he made. And much like what we've seen with Donald Trump, how the establishment, both on the left and the right, have attacked Donald Trump throughout this whole thing. What does George Bush run under? What's his slogan in 1988? No, that was 92. In 1988, he said, a kindler, gentler nation. A kindler, gentler nation. Right after he saw what Ronald Reagan did. Now, George Bush is a good man, but that was the globalist flag put in the ground. That was the beginning of it all. From after Reagan, we've had Bush, Clinton, Bush 2, Obama. We needed a force of nature. We needed a force of nature to take the ship back, generated by you, the people. It's your campaign, as Donald Trump says over and over again. Now, how does people, when Mitt Romney ran, we thought he could win. Another good man. Good man. But here he is. He's doing a debate. Remember that debate, the second debate? I'm an actor. I'm sitting home, and I've watched media, but I'm seeing that second debate, and Candy Crowley goes like this, and the president says, Candy, get the treatment. Talking about Benghazi. At that moment, Mitt Romney wasn't able to go, and this was on CNN, by the way. The media. Now, I'm just going to tease you for a second about CNN. Who's the parent company of CNN? Who is it? Time Warner? Is Time Warner the parent company? Remember that. On CNN, here she goes. She holds it up. Candy Crowley. Candy, get the paper. Instead of Mitt Romney looking at Candy Crowley, looking at the president, looking at Candy Crowley, said, did you guys rehearse this? And then saying, wait a second, the American people knew. They were misled about Benghazi, Mr. President. We cannot mislead them any longer. That's the stance that should have been taken at that moment. Now, for some reason, the elites are afraid to rock the boat. I called that campaign and I said, please, the third debate, have them bring it up. Bring it up at the third debate. I also said, when Hurricane Sandy happened, please have him go down. Now, I never got to Mitt Romney to tell him this. He may not have ever heard it. But I said it to the campaign people and messages. Then the hurricane happened in Sandy. When you're going to be president of the United States, act like president of the United States. You're 3 months from an election, act like it. Donald Trump did just that when the hurricane happened in Louisiana. He understands the media. He understands how to bring a message to the people. Do you remember the night he won the election? My 16-year-old boy, Nicholas, for 4 hours. No kidding. He ate his sandwich like this. Actually, it was pizza. Dad, I'm not doing it until they call it for him. And he was pissed off that they didn't call Florida earlier. I mean, there was certain states. He goes, Dad, why didn't they call it? This is a 16-year-old kid. And finally, when it was called for him, he released, and she didn't give a concession speech, because I know what happened backstage. I know what happened. You got to realize what happened. Everyone's hair had to be on fire. The phone in Hollywood, they had to be calling him. Everyone, every Hollywood elitist had to been calling, what's going on? George Soros. Wait a second. What happened there? All right? They probably called George Soros. He was probably saying, so what happens? She doesn't give the speech for whatever reason. There's a book supposedly coming out about it. But here's what she said in her speech. And to the millions of volunteers, community leaders, activists, and union organizers who knocked on doors, talked to neighbors, posted on Facebook, even in secret, private Facebook sites, I want everyone coming out from behind that and make sure your voices are heard going forward. And to the young people in particular, I hope you will hear this. I have, as Tim said, spent my entire adult life fighting for what I believe in. I have successes and setbacks, sometimes painful ones. Many of you are at the beginning of your professional and public political careers. You will have successes and setbacks too. This loss hurts, but please, never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it. It is worth it. And so we need you to keep up these fights. Now, a couple of hours later, there was the first riots, the first marches. That was the trigger. What's happening right now in our country from the elite in Hollywood? The elite in Hollywood can fly anywhere and work anywhere. I can fly and I travel the world singing. Some of you may not know that. I'm a pretty darn good singer, by the way. But I travel besides the acting. And I can go anywhere. But the makeup artist can't get on that plane. The key grip, the electrician, the dry cleaners. They've lost touch. The Hollywood community has lost touch with the blue collar of America. And that's why they think that they don't know. So now, just a few little things more. The parent company of CNN is Time Warner. Now, we know that the media, the fake media, or the very fake media, we know these, all right? Now, I've known for years, I've seen it being manipulated. And I go from all the stations, and they're good people. I respect everyone's living, everyone's point of view. That's what America is about. But I understand when I see the vitriol and the misrepresentation, the continued misrepresentation of certain things, or the exaggerations of certain things, carried to a point that they shouldn't be. And that's what we see happening right now. Even on every media says the first 100 days. Well, he's only been in office 30 some odd days. It's not 100 days. And look what's been accomplished. Look what's been accomplished. And look what the future's going to be. So anyway, I've got to wrap up. I'm going to have to finish this speech tomorrow. But I want to go, because of Mike Pence, in honor of Mike Pence, I would like to mention another son of Indiana. How many know of Red Skelton? Red Skelton, on his TV show, January 14th, 1969, talked about the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you remember that? Some of the youth don't. But I'd like to read what he said, what his teacher said to him about the Pledge of Allegiance, because the kids weren't saying it with any meaning behind it. The last message Ronald Reagan gave to the American people in his farewell speech was the American patriotism, to educate the youth with a new American patriotism. My article, I wrote it in November on Breitbart. Please read it. It's important. And President Trump, during his inauguration address, brought up patriotism. That's what's lacked. The assimilation of immigrants that don't know what America stands for, haven't been taught it, and a youth that hasn't been. So the Pledge of Allegiance, before we all say it. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. And I add, and sanctified by the blood of our most brave. United, that means that we have come all together. States, individual communities that have united into 50 great states, 50 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries yet unified to a common purpose, and that's love of country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands, one nation under God, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some form of retaliation. Justice, the principle or quality of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means boys and girls, it's as much as your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's hear it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as Red Skelton said, good night and God bless all of you.
So, folks, that is Robert Davi. Robert Davi is well known for his acting in Goonies, James Bond films, and even Die Hard movies. And he got the crowd going. We are waiting for Mike Pence to speak, and it is a great honor for all of us here at NRATV. A great friend of ours, Chris Cox, is going to be introducing Mike Pence. Chris Cox, the executive director of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, a very powerful voice for gun owners here in Washington. And make no mistake about this. When you see a man like Chris Cox with the NRA introducing Mike Pence, this is a tribute to all of you. Gun owners, 5 million members of the NRA, 110 million more gun owners, I will tell you, got Donald Trump elected. Donald Trump recognized that. Donald Trump recognized it by allowing Chris Cox to come in and speak and introduce Mike Pence. And so this is a very big moment for that to happen, for Chris Cox to come in and introduce a vice president. We will get to that in just a little bit. Judge Jeanine Pirro from Fox News is now taking the stage. She is always a crowd hit. She will talk about fighting. She will talk about going after the Washington elitists. Let's listen in to Judge Jeanine.
All right. Hello. I am the last person you're going to hear from before the vice president comes here tonight. So I'm going to keep to time tonight. But I picked that song Happy because I love to be happy. But most of the time, I'm not. And I want to tell you why. I want to welcome you to CPAC and the United States of America, where illegals with criminal records in some states have even more rights and protections than American citizens who live here. That's exactly what I said. They're called sanctuary cities. So what's that got to do with CPAC tonight? Everything. It's simple, really. It's about the Constitution, national security, and the first order of government, which is the protection and safety of its citizens. And in Trump parlance, it's called law and order. So, now I know a little about law and order. I spent over 3 decades on the battlefield where the fight between good and evil unfolds every day. I have seen the ugliest side of life and the pain that people go through for no reason. They didn't do anything. They didn't ask for it. They're just going about their day like the rest of us. When all of a sudden, like a thunderbolt, their lives are forever changed by someone who made the decision to victimize them. And never, ever forget, it is the criminal who makes the choice to commit a crime. And so, my job as a prosecutor, an elected judge, and a 3-time elected district attorney, and yes, every time with the conservative endorsement on the conservative line, was to fight for those who never chose to be a part of the criminal justice system in the first place, the ones who never did anything and didn't deserve it. So let's go through the Constitution and a couple of basics. Number 1, our founding fathers made clear in the Constitution that immigration is a matter for the federal government. the federal government. Now, Article 1, Section 8, Subdivision 4 entrusts to the federal legislative branch the power to regulate citizenship. But today, in cities and states across this great nation, progressive mayors are prioritizing the protection of illegal criminals who not only violated our law to come here, but in addition, committed additional crimes while they were here. These mayors are directing that local police under their jurisdiction not share information about these criminal illegals and not assist the feds or ICE when they issue a hold or a detainer warrant so that they can be deported. And as a result, they roam freely among us. It was a sunny day. She was walking along the pier. She was in a place where she had a right to be, with someone that she loved, her dad. He was a criminal, illegal alien in the same vicinity, a place that he had no right whatsoever to be. The courts had ordered him deported at least 5 times, and his conviction for at least 7 felonies made him a career criminal. And as she lay dying on that cold pier from the gunshot wound fired by the man using yet an illegal weapon, who had no right to be there, she begged for her father's help. But there was no help for Kate. All the protections are now in place for her killer. He was 19. He came here illegally, and like so many others his age, he crossed the border from Central America, and he openly admitted, I'm a gang member. That didn't stop the Obama administration from allowing him into our country. His gang, MS-13. One of the most violent gangs in the world, where initiation ranges from rape to beating someone to death in front of other gang members. He, too, had been ordered out of the country. But in spite of his many convictions, New York City Mayor de Blasio believes he needs protection. And local police, therefore, ignored ICE and the federal request to hold him, at least until they arrived. And today he wanders freely wherever he wants. And as a result, all who come in contact with him risk MS-13 criminal activities. Now, make no mistake, all of us are immigrants, unless you're a Native American. Okay, I'm with you. But I'm not here to talk about immigration laws. I'm here to talk about sanctuary cities that are asylums for criminal illegals. And if you believe in America and conservative values and everything in our Constitution, it is time for you to demand an end to the criminal enclaves that are known as sanctuary cities. The sanctuary apologists argue that holding a criminal illegal for pickup by ICE destroys the relationship between police and the immigrant community. Wrong. If you think that an illegal is going to tell a cop about a crime committed by yet another illegal, you are sadly mistaken. I know. Okay, they're already here. They're already here. Now, even the illegal who is a victim knows that the illegal criminal who victimized him is protected and has sanctuary. The victim is more afraid of the other illegal with sanctuary than he is of the cops. So what's the point? Now, for all of you who might be interested, Congress has already passed a law. I used it many times. It's called a U visa. We don't need sanctuary cities. If someone is going to cooperate with law enforcement, we give him a U visa. He's protected. His family's protected. His mother, his family, who else? Everybody's protected, right? We don't need to put whole cities at risk. Now, fast forward. President Trump, in his first 30 days, pursuant to his word, signed an executive order prioritizing the deportation of criminal illegals and those ordered deported, as well as those who abuse our money and welfare programs. Not bad. The consequence? If the locals don't cooperate, the president has indicated that they risk federal grant monies that's used in part for law enforcement and child protection. That means there will be fewer cops and less protection in those sanctuary cities to protect American citizens who are subject to being victimized and who are living in these criminal enclaves. And as the left marches and they spew allegations of hatred and they demonize our president, calling for his impeachment, they're ignorant of the facts and the law, and they don't care about American citizens who are in jeopardy. Folks, there's a big difference between compassion for those who come here to work and those who are a danger to the rest of us. And so, it is time. It is time to take the country back. We started with President Trump and Vice President Pence, but it's time to stop listening to the nonsense that the left is spewing. It is time to protect the law-abiding citizens of this country. And it is time for law and order. President Trump and Vice President Pence understand that the first order of government is the protection of its citizens, and we cannot and we will not allow sanctuaries as innocent Americans become subject to random acts of violence and death by people who shouldn't even be here in the first place. So enough of this benign-sounding sanctuary city hogwash. To all those mayors in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and D.C. who say they won't retreat as a sanctuary city, I ask, at what point do we stop the violence and the killings? Are you willing to risk it all to protect the illegal who is a criminal? And if so, who is it okay to lose? Who is it okay to risk? Your son, your daughter, your mother? You resist deportation of those criminal illegals who have no right to be here, and even worse, and risk the federal money that puts cops on the street to protect American citizens? How dare you? We don't need your sanctimonious condescension as to whether or not we as Americans are kind enough or Christian enough. We are. It is time for us to go back to the America that our founding fathers intended. One that they might actually recognize. And like President Trump, it is time for us to stop being politically correct and start being morally right. Thank you, CPAC. Thank you, Matt Schlapp. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that is Judge Jeanine Pirro, who gave a great speech. And when you want to talk about a law and order president, you talk about Donald Trump. We are now expecting Chris Cox to come out, the executive director of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, a champion for gun owners, a longtime fighter for gun rights here in Washington. And I'll tell you, if there has ever been a battle to fight for gun owners, it has been in our nation's capital. Here comes Chris Cox. Let's go in and watch as he takes the podium before he introduces Mike Pence. The NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, Chris Cox. It is not Chris Cox. So we got a psych out mode right there. He was supposed to come out, and they are setting up for him. So make no mistake, folks, when we look at what's going on here, I had talked about this earlier, that Chris Cox introducing Mike Pence is a very, very big moment for the NRA, and it is a huge moment for gun owners. Can you imagine in recent history a member of the NRA, much less an executive director for the National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action, coming out and introducing a president? For 8 years, we were under assault. Gun rights were under assault. And so finally now, we have a fight and battle that is underway in Washington where things are looking very good, but the fight continues across this country, from state house to state house. And it is a battle that the NRA is fighting, but cannot do it without the 5 million members of the NRA. And when you talk about power in Washington, when you talk about the power to make change, really where that change is happening is right here in this hall. You have conservatives that have come here from all across America, and I got to walk the halls today, and I talked to so many of these people, and I did not meet one person here that was not a member of the NRA. So many of these folks came out to talk to us and wanted to really come shake our hands here at the NRATV set. Look, I told them, we here at NRATV are just your voice. We are the voice of the 5 million members. When we get behind this desk here, we're speaking on your behalf, and it is a great honor to be able to do that. So Chris Cox will come out, and he will introduce Mike Pence. We are even told that Chris Cox may have a gift for Vice President Pence. Not confirmed for sure, but he may have a gift. And so we will want to see what that gift may be. We in the business call that a teaser. And so as they get ready here in CPAC for the Vice President to come out and speak, you can see the feeling in this hall is one of optimism. And when I think of what happened last year,
ladies and gentlemen,
and the controversy
from the NRA ILA, please welcome Chris Cox.
And so this, folks, is Chris Cox's moment to come out and introduce the Vice President, the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, Chris Cox. It's a moment for him, and folks, a moment for all of you as well.
How's everybody doing? Everybody having a good time? Let me ask you a question. How many of you came to CPAC last year? That's great. Now, how many of you remember what happened 6 days before CPAC started last year? It was February 16th, and American freedom suffered a devastating loss when Justice Scalia unexpectedly passed away. That day, the stakes of the 2016 elections fundamentally changed. This was no longer a fight for the next 4 years. This was going to be a fight for the next 40 years. As you all remember, the Republican primary was still, let's just say, interesting. But we knew Hillary Clinton was either going to win or steal the Democrat nomination. And we knew exactly what Hillary's Supreme Court would look like. For those of us who support the Second Amendment, we knew our gun rights would be gone. Our right to keep and bear arms survived the Supreme Court by just one vote, and he had just passed away. Think about that. The court said we have a right to keep a gun in our homes to protect ourselves if, God forbid, some criminal breaks in and wants to murder us. That's it. That's all they said. But Hillary's view, she said it was a terrible decision, that the Supreme Court was wrong on the Second Amendment. So we decided that freedom could not afford for us to wait. The NRA hasn't backed down from a fight in 146 years, and we sure as hell weren't scared of Hillary Clinton. So we made the earliest endorsement in our history when we endorsed Donald Trump for president in May. You're happy now, but let me tell you, it was a lonely summer. We were criticized, we were ridiculed by the mainstream media, and you know what? We didn't care, and we didn't flinch. We spent more human resources and more financial resources than ever before. We were going door to door and running TV ads when no other group in America was fighting, because NRA members knew the soul of our country was at stake. It wasn't an easy ride, but there were moments last year when you knew we could win. When Hillary turned her back on law enforcement, you knew Americans across this country weren't with her. When she embraced an open borders philosophy that favored sanctuary cities over the rule of law, you knew in your heart it was wrong. And when she said you were all deplorable, and even worse, irredeemable, you thought maybe this time we the people would fight back. And Donald Trump did just that. Sanctuary cities? No thanks. I'll take a wall. Turn our backs on law enforcement? Absolutely not. They deserve our respect and our thanks, just like the brave men and women in the military. And while CNN serenaded Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump's fingers got to talking on Twitter. But for all the moments when you felt like we had a chance, you know what that moment was for me? When I knew we could win? The moment Donald Trump picked Mike Pence to serve as his running mate. I have the honor tonight of introducing and presenting an award to the Vice President, and I couldn't be more proud to do so. The Charlton Heston Courage Under Fire Award is the highest award presented at CPAC. It's not presented annually. It's only given when a worthy recipient is a parent. It is designated to recognize individuals who have demonstrated courage, strength of character, and backbone in defending conservative values and principles. The award is a flintlock rifle. It's what the mainstream media calls a high-powered weapon of war, so we left it out back. But in reality, it represents the strength of American freedom, and so does this year's award winner. Throughout his life, Mike Pence has stood on faith and stood on principle. He remains grateful for the grace of God, the love and support of his family, and the blessings of liberty that are every American's birthright. That sums up the man, and I can't think of a better recipient of this award. Ladies and gentlemen, the 48th Vice President of the United States and his wife, Karen, Mike Pence.
Boy, I will tell you what a speech by Chris Cox. And when you talk about a fighter for freedom, I would want no other man in a foxhole with me other than Chris Cox. And, of course, Wayne LaPierre by his side. Let's listen in to the Vice President, Mike Pence, who's about to give his speech today. And don't forget Wayne LaPierre at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. We'll cover that live for you here on NRATV as well. And boy, what a guy to introduce Mike Pence in Chris Cox. And really, a victory for gun owners, folks, when you see at CPAC having a member of the NRA, a leader of the NRA like Chris Cox do this. Here is Mike Pence.
Hello, CPAC. It is great to be back at the premier gathering of conservatives in the United States of America. You know, this is the 9th time I've had the privilege to address CPAC. Thanks to all of you and the confidence of our new president, this is the first time I'm here as Vice President of the United States of America. Because of all of you, because of your hard work and your support and your prayers, my family and I have the privilege to serve. And more importantly, because of all of you, my friend Donald Trump is the 45th President of the United States of America. You know, the President and I have become good friends. It's the greatest privilege of my life to be Vice President to a leader of such conviction, vision, and courage. Now, some people have remarked that we're a little bit different. You know, I'm a small-town guy. He's big city. I'm Midwest. He's Manhattan Island. He's known for his bigger-than-life personality, his charm, and his charisma, and I'm like, not. You know, as I said at the Republican convention, I guess he was just looking to balance the ticket. But all kidding aside, when President Trump asked me to join him on the ticket, I said yes in a heartbeat. Because you have elected a man for president who never quits. He never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And I promise you, he will never stop fighting until we make America great again. You know, from the outset, our president reminded me of somebody else, a man who inspired me to actually join the cause of conservatism nearly 40 years ago, President Ronald Reagan. I believe President Trump has given voice to the aspirations and frustrations of the American people like no leader since Reagan. I just knew our new president would reignite our cause and renew it in our own day. And he did just that. President Trump won a historic victory all across the United States of America. Think about it. 30 out of 50 states, including states that no Republican had carried in a generation. President Donald Trump turned the blue wall red. And you know what? The establishment never saw it coming. I mean, the media, the elites, the insiders, everybody else who profits off preserving the status quo, they dismissed our president every step of the way. And in dismissing him, they also dismissed millions of the hardworking, forgotten men and women who make this country great. And worse yet, they're still trying to dismiss him. They're still trying to dismiss all of us. What they should have learned on Election Day is This is not a government of the elites, by the media, or for the establishment. What November 8th showed, even if they didn't listen, is that this is still government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And last November, the American people rose up and demanded a safer America, a more prosperous America, and a great America again. That's why the American people elected Donald Trump as President of the United States of America, and President Donald Trump is already delivering for the American people. So I'm here today because of all of you and because of this conservative movement. And on behalf of the President, from the bottom of my heart, let me say thank you. Thank you for your hard work and your commitment to our cause. But our fight didn't end on November the 8th. We won the day, but make no mistake about it. The harder work, the most important work, now lies ahead. The fight goes on. Let me make you a promise. President Trump will fight for you every single day. President Trump is a man of his word, and we're keeping the promises he made to the American people. Over at the White House, I like to say we're in the promise-keeping business these days. You know, when President Trump asked me to chair the transition, he looked at me and just said, "Mike, just get me the best." And how about that Attorney General Jeff Sessions? How about Jim Mad Dog Mattis over at Defense? How about Dr. Ben Carson at Housing and Urban Development? Just to name a few. I could go on and name every single one of them, and I'm proud to stand with each one of you, folks. This is the A-Team. I say with great confidence, knowing the men and women that he's assembled around this, President Trump has assembled the strongest conservative cabinet in my lifetime, bar none. With this team, we as conservatives have an opportunity that only comes around every few generations, or maybe just once in a lifetime. And my friends, this is our time. This is the chance we've worked so hard for so long to see. This is a time to prove again that our answers are the right answers for America. A strong military, more jobs, less taxes, respect for the Constitution and the values that have made America great, and a deep and abiding faith in the goodness of the American people. You know, history will attest, every time America produces a leader who builds on this firm foundation, our nation reaches heights that once seemed unreachable. And let me assure you, President Donald Trump is such a leader. And under his leadership, we are making America great again. He's putting America first and putting Americans back to work already. He's rebuilding the military and putting our enemies on notice. He's supporting law enforcement and ending illegal immigration once and for all. He's rolling back big government and slashing through red tape. He's upholding the Constitution, restoring the culture of life, and President Donald Trump is leading the fight to repeal and replace Obamacare. And let me assure you, America's Obamacare nightmare is about to end. You know, despite the best efforts of liberal activists at town halls around the country, the American people know better. Obamacare has failed, and Obamacare must go. This failed law is crippling the American economy and crushing the American people. Talk about your fake news, folks. Just look at all the promises liberals made about Obamacare. Remember, they told us the cost of insurance would go down. They told us if you like your doctor, you can keep him. They told us if you like your health plan, you can keep it. And now we all know the truth. Today, Americans are paying $3,000 more a year on average for their health insurance. Last year, premiums skyrocketed by a stunning 25%, and millions have lost their plans and lost their doctors. Higher costs, fewer choices, worse care. That's Obamacare. And if that weren't bad enough, Obamacare is also a job killer, and everybody in America knows it. Well, we're about to change all that by repealing Obamacare once and for all, eliminating its mandates, its taxes, and its intrusion into your business and into your lives. And best of all, with President Trump's leadership, Obamacare is going to be replaced with something that actually works. Something that's built on freedom and individual responsibility. President Trump and I want every American to have access to quality and affordable health insurance, which is why we're designing a better law that lowers the cost of health insurance without growing the size of government. We're going to let Americans purchase health insurance across state lines, the way you buy your life insurance, the way you buy your car insurance. We're going to make sure that Americans with pre-existing conditions have access to health insurance and the security they need, and we're going to give states the freedom and flexibility to take care of the least fortunate in the best way that'll work in their state and in their community. You know, despite all the fear-mongering from the left, make no mistake about it, we'll have an orderly transition to a better health care system that finally puts the American people first. And after we repeal and replace Obamacare, we're going to do a whole lot more. We're going to start off by rebuilding the American military. We'll restore the arsenal of democracy. We'll provide our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard with the resources and training they need to accomplish their mission and come home safe. And we will hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source so it can no longer threaten our nation or our families. And we're going to get this economy moving again by cutting taxes for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We're going to keep rolling back job-killing regulations, and we're going to rescind unconstitutional executive orders signed by Barack Obama. And under President Trump's leadership, we're going to continue to rein in wasteful government spending and restore fiscal responsibility to Washington, D.C. We'll enact real education reform that gives families more choices. It recognizes that education is a state and local function, and under President Donald Trump, no state will ever be forced to adopt the Common Core. I'm proud to stand with a president who's doing all of this and more. And I'm proud to stand with a president who stands with our most cherished ally, the Jewish state of Israel. Israel's fight is our fight. Her cause is our cause. Her values are our values. And under President Trump, America will stand with Israel. And maybe most of all, I'm grateful and honored to serve with a president who will uphold our Constitution and the sanctity of human life. Because of President Donald Trump, life is winning in America again. Last month, he reinstated the Mexico City policy preventing foreign aid from funding organizations that promote or perform abortions, and we will make the Hyde Amendment permanent American law. And when it comes to the highest court in the land, in Judge Neil Gorsuch, President Trump kept his word to nominate a new justice to the Supreme Court who will uphold our Constitution and all the God-given liberties enshrined in it in the tradition of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia. Men and women of the conservative movement, this is our time. And I promise you, the President and I will work our hearts out to make America safe again, to make America prosperous again. But the success of our movement, and more importantly, the success of our country, depends as much on all of you as it does on us. We must, all of us, rise to the challenge before us, tomorrow and every day thereafter. The other side is not sitting idle, and their allies in the media are more than willing to amplify their defense of the failed status quo every single day. Now more than ever, as we did before when this movement won back the Congress in 2010 and won back the White House in 2016, we got to do what we did before. We got to mobilize. We got to march forward as if it's the most important time in the history of our movement, because it is. Men and women of this movement, there is no time like the present. So make your voices heard in town halls, with your family and your friends, on the internet and in social media, and in all those places where common sense, conservative messages are most desperately needed. Because this is our time. From this day forward, to make America great again, President Trump and I need every ounce of your energy and enthusiasm, your conviction, your courage, your passion. And we need one more thing, if you're inclined. We need your prayers. You know, last month I took my oath of office, administered by the great Justice Clarence Thomas. You know, for this grandson of an Irish immigrant, it's hard to describe the privilege. But I and my family felt that day. I put my left hand on a Bible that was actually used by the 40th President of the United States back in January of 1981. But what was uncanny about that moment is I opened that Bible to the verse that he had it open to on that day. And it happened to be the very same verse that I most often quoted as I campaigned across this country on behalf of our new president. In days ahead, as we work and as we labor, as we advance this cause to restore our country, I think, would do well to remember those ancient words. But if his people, who are called by his name, will humble themselves and pray, he'll do like he's always done. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal this land, this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So reflecting on those timeless truths and the work that we have to do, my fellow Americans, it's time. But I'm confident. I'm confident with your help and with God's help. And with President Donald Trump in the White House, I know the best days for America are yet to come. Let's get to work. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America.
That is the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. And if you heard a common theme there, he said it was our time. We've heard that someplace else before, haven't we? Our time, we have heard from the NRA's leader, Wayne LaPierre. We've heard it from Chris Cox, who gave the introduction to Mike Pence, a big moment for gun owners to have Chris Cox introduce Mike Pence that way. I will tell you, listening to Mike Pence speak, I feel very, very hopeful about our future. It is clear when you hear Mike Pence speak that America is in good hands and our future is very, very bright. Take the message home with you. That is what Mike Pence asked everyone in the room tonight to do. Take the message of conservatism, of freedom, home. And you better believe the thousands of conservatives that are here in this hall tonight will do just that. They spent their own money to come here, to hear Mike Pence, to hear the messages of so many conservative leaders, simply to do what they need to do, and that is go home and fight the good fight for freedom and gun rights and everything else that conservative principles stand for and everything else that makes America so great. It has been a great pleasure for me to bring you live coverage of CPAC 2017. Don't forget, tomorrow at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we will start our coverage here once again, and that will lead up to Wayne LaPierre's speech at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We will cover that live for you, and as well, Donald Trump will be speaking here at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And so we have a big day ahead. We will have all kinds of interviews as conservative leaders are here and the good people of America who are here, who really are making America so great. As we go back into the hall, take one more look as they say goodbye to Mike Pence, call it a night here at CPAC. For NRATV, I'm Grant Stinchfield. Thanks so much for watching.
And now, an NRATV special live presentation from CPAC.